And we continue with our live coverage of the Edo State gubernatorial elections. As the political landscape continues to be charged and tensions are high, and the electorates, as the voters, are on the streets, coming out of their homes, ready to vote. We want to assess the multiple parties' concerns when regarding the elections, and also to look at the last 8 years of Edo State, and also what to be expected come the elections, our concerns about the INEC, what the electorate is to expect, and so much more, as well as the parties and the concerns that the parties have raised all the way vying towards today, September 21st. And so to do that, we're being joined by a very distinguished guest. Our first guest joining us today is Nnamdi Iroegbu. He is the convener of Indigenous People of Nigeria. He joins us live from Abuja, Nigeria. And also later on, we're going to be joined by Inrahim Momoh, who will also be joining us from Edo State. He's a voter, a resident of Edo State, and also a lecturer, an academician. What's the word? Academic.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying?
You get it.
But Nnamdi, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for joining us this morning. Many thanks to you for taking our time this morning to be here. All throughout this and off-cycle elections, all eyes are on Edo State at the moment. One of the key states when it comes to the South-South regions. Let me start with your thoughts and your concerns just vying up and leading up to D-Day today, September 21st.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Once again, Edo is not just one of the South-South, one of the states in the South-South. It's actually the heartbeat of the nation. Today, Edo will be deciding where the nation will be going to, in the next electionary process that is ahead. I haven't seen that a government has been in place for 8 years. Edo people, all right, who in history has shown that they have the capacity to decide for themselves, where to go to, especially when it comes to choice of leadership. Because if not, in Nigeria, where else do you have a king so revered, as we have in Edo? So Edo is a special case, for us today. And the process that has, been seen all this period of the campaigns and all of that, we have seen how even though when it got so charged that people were predicting violence and all of that, we have seen that Edo people on this D-Day have shown that, okay, while we may have the right to express ourselves, because that's what democracy is about. You have a right to say what you want to say, what your vision is, and we have seen it, within these three candidates, that is the Labour Party guy, the APC guy, and the PDP guy. But you now look at what about those elements that allows a people continue to grow together. For instance, the issue of zoning. Now, these two parties, APC and PDP, respected that part of zoning, which recognizes that we should have some political understanding. And this I support at the national level, where we can share power amongst the senatorial district, as this case in Edo. So the PDP respected that, APC respected that, but Labour Party did a new kid on the block, all right? So they went for the populist guy, and he has done very well, who has shown that he can be the people's guy. But it's beyond all of that. Today, Edo will decide whether to reward 8 years of allowing the people's voice to be heard, to be respected. For instance, as Godwin Obaseki, within the 8 years of his reign, did show that he can allow the people's view, an environment that, creates a peaceful place where people can vent, people can take charge. For instance, during the 2023 election, in fact, Edo is the capital of the obedient movement in Nigeria, as far as I am concerned, because even the governor came out to admit that people within his own household, that he had obedience, and he respected that, And so that's what democracy is about. Today, we want to say to Edo people, you are the heartbeat of our nation, and we want the people's view, the people to decide, who they want, to lead them as from today as Godwin Obaseki winds down. For 8 years, I think he has done his bit. History will judge him whether he did well or not. History will attest to the things he has done. But one thing that you can't take away, I have personally learned that we can have a leader who can at least respect democratic environment to try. This attempt to, create thugs and call for violence and attempt to be fraudulent in a process that has to do with wanting to serve the people. Let the people decide whether you can do this job by the programs that you have built out and the capacity that you have come to the table with. That should be what democracy is about, not who is more violent or who can acquit anyone with the resources, and all of that. Let it be about ideas. Like Olu, for instance, who is my dad, but I'm a PDP man. Okay, so it's important that we also allow Nigerians constitutionally have a right to associate, have a right to join any group of political party of their choice, irrespective of what profession you are involved in. Even as a journalist, you have a right to join a political party. That way, we are deliberate wanting to build our nation. Nigeria is a great nation. And today, like I will always say, on this show, Edo will show the Nigerian people that when it comes to civilization, Edo has been civilized even before the white man came into this environment that eventually became what we know today as Nigeria. Okay, so today we want Edo people to know that Nigerians are watching and that we want the heartbeat of our nation to show where we would go to next. Because this hardship in our land, we cannot sustain it. This anger that is boiling up, we do not want a violent revolution in our country. What we want is a ballot revolution, where the people's will, where the people's view, where the people's choice will be allowed. All right? And I want to commend, I'm not a member of APC, I'm not a fan of the president. I want to comment so far what I have seen, even though the push of the military into the arena, for me, when the chief of defense staff went to Edo and all of that, it could be a show of force and to douse the tension, but I don't think
Mr. Iroegbu, Mr. Iroegbu, now we're going to come to that security instance. But first of all, I wanted to say that I liked that entry there regarding the cultural nature of Edo being civilized even before the white man. You are correct there, and that's very interesting to impute here. Now, let's talk about zoning, which you also referred to in your comments. Now, how important a factor is zoning in the Edo elections? How important is it regarding the preference of candidates that have been fielded by the different parties? How does that affect the voters today?
I don't know, but I will tell you what I expect and what I believe in. I believe in zoning. I believe that within the political arena, we can have some unwritten code, by which we will allow power to rotate peacefully. After all, it's our state. It's our country. Some aliens won't come here and ask for their zone. It will still be Nigerians, as in this case, Edo. So indeed, if zoning is what I believe in, then I think PDP and the APC got it right in that direction. The LP may say, that they are new, but being new is not the case here. There is that unwritten code should apply to all parties. All right? In fact, we should make it constitutional. That within state level, let it rotate within the senatorial district, and then within the national level, let it rotate within the geopolitical zone, the six geopolitical zones. That way, we are building the people, because that's what this is about. We now know today that anybody who thinks that being involved in politics should not be his thing, well, you have to think again. Even as a journalist, you're feeling the pinch. You buy fuel now, and the insecurity that the country is facing, you live in Nigeria. The economy as it is, you feel it. You go to the same market. So why are you pretending that politics is not important? Politics is the most important if you have to. So I think zoning is important, that it plays its role. If the Edo people, like I say, is the heartbeat of our nation, I think Nigerians even will accept that zoning thing. it can work. Let's adopt it. Democracy is not about copying and pasting. You can't copy the American style and paste in Nigeria. That's why I love what people Olusegun Obasanjo proposed, that we should adopt our own style of democracy. You can call it advocacy. All right. So that zone should be respected. I respect that, and I think that it will play a key role in deciding who will become the next governor of Edo State.
Thank you so much there. Let's switch gears now. We understand that we have Inrahim Momoh, other guest who's going to join us. He joins us live now. Inrahim Momoh is a lecturer, Department of Political Science, Ambrose Ali University, Ekpoma. He's also the Executive Director, Albinoism and Disability Advocacy Center, ADAC. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, Inrahim. Inrahim, I want to ask you this question, and very specifically with the voting. I understand you're not only a voter, but also an observer, an electoral observer for this off-cycle elections. What have been your observations regarding PWDs, people living with disabilities, who are there voting? Is there special preferences to them, especially for them to enact or carry out their civic responsibility and their duties?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Generally, what we're seeing is a election in all the places I have visited this morning before I joined you on the program. We have seen that the people came out en masse in some of the units. I've been in Ego, local government area of Edo. I've gone through at least 5 different polling units. First thing we have noticed is that there's a high turnout of persons, and in all the places I've gone to, as at 8:30 a.m. this morning, INEC personnel, adult personnel were already at the polling units, all 5 polling units where I have been to today. Then regarding PWDs, I like to say that thumbs up to INEC for the efforts they have put in. I could say from what I have observed, among all government parastatals, state and subnational and then federal, INEC is one agency or establishment of government that has given, a high level of interest to inclusivity, such that INEC has made provisions for persons with disability. I know that INEC has the voters guide, which is meant for persons who are hearing impaired, so that at least you can see, because at the outset, the polling officers and the assistant polling officer will give the regulations for the elections. But those who are hearing impaired are not able to cope. So INEC has a provision that accommodates, those who are hearing impaired. And INEC has also made provisions in places where they have records of voters that are persons with disability, particularly persons with albinism. INEC have also made arrangements for magnifying lenses, for persons with albinism. The third point about what INEC has done, to make the election more inclusive, is that there is a Braille ballot guide that INEC is deploying for this Edo election. Even though this is not the first time, but in all the engagements we have had with INEC, we have had, and INEC, those who are registered in the last 2 rounds of continuous voter registration and identified as persons with disability, INEC collated those records. I personally, in the last training that we had, inquired for my polling units. Interestingly, INEC has the record of a person with albinism in my polling unit. So regarding INEC, on the side of INEC, I think there's inclusivity. And this is important because, according to the World Health Organization, on the average, 15% of population are persons with disability. In any given population, 16% are persons with disability. And so a country that is over 200 million, what we are saying is that at least 2 million persons are living with disability in this country, Nigeria. So imagine that in the last general election, the presidential election, for example, only about 28 million persons voted. What I want to suggest that only the PWD communities could have even determined or swayed the outcome of that election. That is a significant figure. So what I hope to do in the course of this election is that
we seem to have lost Ibrahim there. Inrahim Momoh there, just talking about the PWCs.
How much is INEC keeping up with the pledges, for inclusivity? We hope to see that in court.
All right. We lost you there for a second, Ibrahim, but very solid analysis there when it comes to the PWDs, and that's persons living with disabilities when it comes to elections. And I'm so glad you put it in stats there. I'm so glad you put the statistics there. 20 million people, and that means they can sway the elections, and so very much they are important. But speaking about the elections, and specifically when it comes to public confidence, the conversation has been ongoing with the electoral process, but also the trust deficit that goes with it. So far, so good. When we spoke to our reporters last time, the deployment of the materials was still being delayed. Voters were already pulling and coming out to their polling units, but there wasn't any materials there, and some POs had not even arrived at the polling unit. And so it asks a question about the process, the electoral process as well. What do we hope to see with this cycle? Is it going to be the same old story, same old plot, or do we hope to see something changes now? Because, I mean, all the onus lies on INEC to change the narrative and the perception of how we see them given the last general election.
INEC is making all the right, noises. INEC is making all the right promises. Promises around inclusivity, promises around, the sanctity of the process, that is going to be free, fair, credible, and inclusive. INEC is saying that voters will come, that not only will they be allowed to vote, but their votes will count. And I'm seeing also a heavy deployment of security personnel, to give the reaction. I know in the run-up to the elections, there has been some very fiery rhetoric, very hard-hitting rhetoric among the key players. We have seen words like it's going to be a do-or-die election. We have heard the kind of rhetoric that they're not going to sign. Some particular party did not sign, the peace accord, which is a voluntary act anyway, but it's a commitment, a voluntary commitment, but though it's not compulsory, but it's a kind of reassurance to the voters. So, but today, there's heavy deployment, I can tell you, all over Edo. There are roadblocks all over in the major highways. And then you are seeing civil personnel, police officers, and other security agencies physically present in each of the polling units. So, the litmus test is what happens today, but from early indications, from their promises and in what we have seen up until this moment, there's need for us to have some modicum of confidence that indeed, perhaps, there will be a free and fair process.
All right, now I'm going to come back to Mr. Kanu, if you're with us. Mr. Nnamdi, rather, sorry about that. My apologies. Now, Mr. Nnamdi, would you tell us? It's the familiarity with that
name, yes.
But now, Mr. Nnamdi, let's talk about the significance the role of political endorsement has played in these elections currently. We've seen some endorsements or allegiances, it would seem, from other individuals from outside the state. How do you think this has affected or influenced voter perception regarding the elections currently?
Yeah, like I said already, Edo is the most civilized region. Okay, so the interests of other Nigerians, like you are there, your heart is very important. Edo is our heartbeat. It's important to us. And these endorsements showed clearly that the state is important to the Nigerian people. And to the people of Edo, that's why I say Edo is civilized. Because when it comes to elections, the people of Edo, from my distant observation, they've shown always that they are committed to the affairs of their state when it comes to leadership. Godfatherism, as was attempted to, after Anini, that seemed to be the last godfather. that Edo will ever experience in politics. Even when you look at the candidates, they all have the big men behind them. The governor that is incumbent is supporting his candidate very well, even though he's speaking for him. Oshomole, the former governor, appears to be the mouthpiece of the candidate of the APC. Olu, of course, relying on the influence of the obedient movement led by Peter Obi and all of that. So it's an important election. And I think INEC has a duty here to possibly redeem its already battered, because the last election, the 2022 election, INEC's image is presently in disarray. So they have a chance here to ensure that this time around, at least Edo can be a better reference.
Specifically, what are your thoughts? Specifically, what are your thoughts on the recent, I don't want to use the word allegation, but the recent suggestion that the relationship between the Edo Rec and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory might sway voters' decisions? What do you think about that?
The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, thank God I'm speaking from the Federal Capital Territory. He's not from Edo, the last time I checked. The concern of, he's related to someone who is also up there. Well, we all have our relations in government, even though we may not be in the same political party. But I think the rep can stand for himself. I think that if he is a cousin to the FCT minister, as we know, then the stubborn nature of, in quotes, permit me to use that, of the FCT minister can also apply in the person of the Edo rep, who can be pushed to do this, and he said, no, let the right thing be done. Let him speak for himself. He's a man. And I've listened to him a bit. He seemed to want to have his own name also etched somewhere in the annals of our history. He has a chance to prove those who may be having any doubts about his interest, he has a chance to prove them wrong. That's why I said INEC here owes itself a duty to redeem its image. It's very important because
Indeed.
we cannot continue to fail the nation, especially when so much resources, so much taxpayers' money is deployed in this case. Election is expensive to run. It takes a lot from Nigeria. It takes a lot from the system, from the state. So we must start treating it with that required diligence and commitment, seriousness, but not this Timozobo approach, that is the killing and the violence. No, we don't need violence. Let people vent, let people share ideas, but let the people eventually, let the ballots count. And let the institution that is in charge, even if that, in fact, about the image of our nation, by the time we get it right, INEC, the process would naturally clean up the system, okay? Because that way we can now have leaders that will come work for the people, and when they don't work, they sack them, okay? So I think sincerely that the REC has a chance to make a name for himself. If I were in his shoes, that's what I would do. I will make a name for myself, especially now that the spotlight is on me.
We wait to see what happens at the end of today. But gentlemen, I want to say a very big thank you to you, especially to you as well, Ibrahim, who I understand has other duties today, as you are an election observer yourself. So we won't hold you up for too much. We have to let you go to continue with your other duties. But thank you so much for giving us very much insight when it comes to the persons living with disability. They are important, and they also have to take center stage when it comes to conversations like this. And also to yourself as well, Mazi Nnamdi Iroegbu. We want to say thank you for joining us this morning. Once again, many thanks.